All right. Welcome back to the Joe and Co podcast. Today on, we have one of my best friends, Rocky Hopper. Somebody I draw a lot of strength from, somebody who I look up to. And, we're here to hear his story today and hear how things came for him and how he's grown into things. So thank you for coming on, Rock.
Yeah, no problem, man. Proud to be here.
So I kind of know the answer, but you've never done a podcast, anything like that recorded. No. So this is kind of a trip, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is definitely a totally different experience that, I don't know. I've never.
Yeah. So part of you has done a podcast. He's been on every podcast so far. This is Rocky's Face. Part of Rocky's Face. Brandon screwed around and,
showed it that one.
That one? All right. But yeah, Rock had to have some like oral surgery done on his face, and they decided to like switch it over and technology it into being.
It's pretty morbid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool though. So we're gonna start with like some like super easy stuff. What is your favorite kind of food, Rock?
Man, it's changed so much now that I pretty much eat anything and everything now. Growing up, it was always pizza or chicken nuggets, orange juice. I was really, really picky growing up, and now it's whatever you got.
Right. So, what kind of pizza? What's your favorite?
It was definitely pepperoni.
Pepperoni?
Yeah.
From anywhere?
From anywhere.
Cool. So, what about hobbies?
I definitely really liked art and drawing and anything like that. I was always doodling stuff, drawing comics, drawing everything, anything I could get my hands on. I'd set my shoes up in the corner and I'd draw my shoes and different things like that. That's just childhood stuff, but really, it grew into motorcycles and dirt bikes and all that kind of stuff. Trying to think of anything else.
So what part of the like growing into like motorcycles and dirt bikes, just going fast, or what really drew you to it?
It was more of I didn't know any other kid on the street that had a dirt bike kind of deal. I don't know. And just watching my dad and just watching dirt bike races on TV and any of that kind of stuff. My family had some land out in Valley Center, and we'd go out there and ride our dirt bikes all day long and come home and have a bunch of stories to tell,
Right. All right. So if you could literally sit down with anybody in history and have a meal, talk to them, hear them tell stories, like literally any person alive or dead, who would you want to sit down and visit with?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think I'd talk to my great grandpa just to see how it all started.
Yeah. Did you, I know a little bit about your family history, but did you ever get to meet him?
I did not, but I know he's the guy that everybody kind of talks about in my family because, he was the creator of what we have today and everything like that, so I don't know. I was trying to think of history stuff or that was the first name that popped in my head when you asked that question. So perfect answer. So what kind of, what's your favorite band? Oh man. It changes so much. I was really into Tool and Incubus. So two totally different styles, but two really, that's always my go-to. Definitely high school and middle school. I don't know. There's just something about it. I was a pretty big pothead. And
do you have a favorite Tool song?
Oh man, all of them. I can't really pick one. It just whatever's playing. Seen them a couple of times in concert. I've been to a couple of Incubus concerts too, and just those were my two big bands that I always listen to. But I pretty much listen to anything. I mean, I'm not. That's where I'm bad with names and bad with bands, I guess. But as soon as a song comes on, I'll know it right away. So
yeah. So if you had like $1 million to spend on a vehicle, like what would you buy? Any vehicle?
Oh man. I don't know. Probably a Corvette.
Corvette?
Yeah.
Isn't your family a Ford family?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's just something about that car that I've always liked. Always thought was cool.
Is there like a certain generation you like? Or are you talking like the brand new mid-engine
Probably the brand new, the newest
Hell
one,
yeah.
the
Yep,
best of
absolutely.
the best. I mean, that old school stuff's cool. It's cool to look at, but I don't want to drive it. I can't fit in it,
Yeah, those new ones are
Even
nasty.
the new one, I probably can't even sit in, but
You're right. So what, and we can pick a couple here, but favorite movies.
oh man. The newest one, that Terrifier.
The
Oh
Terror.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm kind of like the horror movie stuff, the blood and guts and all that kind of crap. And then whatever scares anybody that I'm watching the movie with, because I like their reaction more than what's actually on the TV. Oh man. I'm trying to think of something else though. I mean, it'd be too cliche to say all the Rocky movies. I've seen them 50 million times. I can literally know exactly what he's saying if I'm watching it on mute,
Right.
I know every line to every one of those movies. So
Yeah, it was kind of funny. We went to an event and there was a guy standing next to you, walked up, talked to you that looked just like Paulie off of Rocky.
oh yeah, yeah.
It was like, wow, that kind of guy kind of fits.
I forgot about that.
That was funny. So what about favorite book?
Oh man. Favorite book. And this is one that I heard about and I had the chance to read and I fell in love with it. And it's called The Shack.
The Shack. Isn't that Stephen King, right? Or Dean
No,
Koontz, or-
I can't remember the author of it, but it just talks about this guy's life and how he grew up, and he actually goes to this place. His kid gets kidnapped, and they can't find the kid, and he goes on this deal to go find himself again, and and he just kind of goes on this soul searching adventure in a way, and his life kind of opens up to him. It's definitely more of a self-help book in a way, but just it's not a real story, right? But it's
Novel.
yeah.
Yeah. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I've heard of it a bunch of times. I've heard it enough times now that it's like time to download it after this episode.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It's good. It's a good one.
Won't take me long to fire through it because, man, I really just eat a bunch of I ate that stuff up.
Oh yeah.
So what about foods you will not eat?
Foods I will not eat. I just experienced this last night at the buffet. I will not eat crawdads. You're not gonna make me eat a crawdad. I cannot. Nope.
So are you on the whole shrimp is bugs train?
Yeah, totally, 100%. 100%. I'll eat it if it's already been peeled, if it's already been cooked, whatever. I don't have to see the eyeballs, the face, the feet, the tail, none of that. I don't want to see any of that crap. So as soon as that was put on my plate, I don't know.
Killed it for you.
My buddy of mine sat over at the table with me trying to show me how to eat it. And it was everything I could do to not throw up in my own plate, right? Like I was just, no, I'm good. I worked at a cockroach factory for a little while, and
What? Wait. What do you mean? Like you guys made cockroaches?
so this is it was so the guy sells bugs to all the exotic pets in different places like that, and just it wasn't a traumatic experience, but it's freaking nasty, man. You watch all these things grow in these boxes, and they're bugs. It's for these, your exotic pet, whatever you got, your snake, your lizard. I'm sure they feed them to birds or whatnot, and I couldn't do it.
You just drop like a box full of roaches on the ground and they just all start up you.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it wasn't gross. It was the first job I got when I got out of prison, and I actually knew the guy. I went to high school with him, and he hired me on the spot just because he knew me from going to school and all that kind of stuff, and I was just eager to work and ready to go.
So along that same vein of food, I can only ask 3 people in the world, and 2 of them are you and Matt. What exactly does a Madagascar hissing cockroach taste like?
Oh man, dude, it was the weirdest thing. It was like biting into toenails. Have you ever seen like toenails? Like, so you've seen a cockroach and they have those weird little swoops on their back.
Yeah.
As soon as I bit into that thing, man, all those things chomped off in my mouth, right? And I'm very thankful that it was frozen. You guys,
Yes. I couldn't. Yes.
very thankful that it was frozen because it made it easier to eat until you got to that center part.
Yeah.
And then it was like a fruit gusher.
Could you describe the flavor? Was it oaky or?
Oh, dude, it was like,
Irony kind of.
yeah,
Like iron.
yeah,
It wasn't as foul of a taste as I was expecting.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like in my head, but it definitely wasn't palatable.
No,
You wanted to spit it out.
Would not, like 0 out of 10 would not recommend.
definitely
Correct.
not. Yeah, you don't want to. I don't know, but there's people that do that all the time in other countries. Eat grasshoppers, eat worms, eat whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wasn't going to be the only guy that didn't do it. You know.
Right. So how did you, I mean, you got into bikes because your dad got you a dirt bike when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We had those little Tractor Supply motorcycles, like whatever dirt bike looking things first. And it was everything we could do to set up ramps in the backyard. And, you know, it was all center block and piece of plywood or 2x4 kind of stuff. And we'd always make my brother Caleb go off of it first to, you know, make sure it wasn't going to fall over on us. And, yeah, I mean, we grew up racing BMX and riding BMX bikes and ramps. And, you know, that was just kind of the next step, throw a motor on a bicycle. And, yeah, and then we got some little 50s and 150. And we're always out at the farm running them around or through Andover, you know.
Right. Right. So yeah, quit looking at my cheat sheet.
Yeah.
I like the honesty. I like the honest, straightforward. So man, you know, let's get into your story a little bit. You know, now we found out why Caleb is how he is because of what you guys did to him. Damn it.
Yeah.
But so what was it like growing up? I mean, you were the oldest of your brothers.
Yeah, I had 2 younger brothers and an older sister. We did a lot of bouncing around early on. But I think that was just from my dad's work. He traveled a lot and was always on the road. Not really always, but just he traveled a lot. And we had a lot of opportunities to be in a bunch of different states and stuff like that. And, you know, but we always had a house here. We always lived here. The family was always here. You know, the business was here kind of deal. So yeah, just trying to think the first time we had our actual house, the longest was the one in Andover. You know, and he built all these places, you know. We had probably 3 different houses that he actually built, you know, drew the plans up and built them, you know. So that was kind of cool growing up and seeing that, watching that, being a part of it. You know, there's pictures of me and my brothers there trying to, you know, he'd give us little hammers and we'd be over there nailing nails into a little cut off piece of 2x4, thinking we were really helping, you know, kind of thing. That's just because he was working there till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning and then going to his day job, you know, just trying to build a house for us. You know, we lived in a bunch of different rentals and stuff like that. My dad's got you know, he knows a lot of people and pretty big family. So, there's just a lot of little stepping stones until we got to where we needed to be.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
So growing up, like, you know, obviously your dad did what he did. Did your mom work when you were growing up or?
She did for, a little while. I think it was I'm trying to think how old I was. She started working at a school. So we started going to, I can't think of the name of that school now. That's weird. I went there for a few years. Sunrise Christian Academy. That's what it was called. It was a private school. Went there. She was a secretary there for a little while, and or at least the whole time we were there. But I think for me running around, I was always kind of the class clown, a little bit of a troublemaker kind of deal, and I kept getting in trouble, and you know my grades were kind of slipping, and I don't know if it was more just boredom or too smart, because I wouldn't do my homework, but I'd pass all my tests, and it was kind of a weird deal. I can remember when they decided to move me to Andover and I started going there. I don't know where I just felt like I didn't have to do what you were telling me to do at all. Like I had no respect for authority, no care in the world what you were trying to show me or what you were telling me. I wasn't just, whatever.
Right. What are you going to do?
I didn't, I had zero idea of what consequences were. I don't know why I was like that. I just, if you weren't my dad and you weren't going to tell me what to do.
Right. And I get the idea you knew very well what consequences were when it came to dad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. 100%. No, I definitely, but at a very young age, I just knew, I don't know. So it's kind of a weird thing because my dad always kind of taught us, he was like, you're a hopper. You can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, pick it and be it.
Right.
But I kind of flipped it in my brain as like, okay, I'm a hopper. F you.
I'm going to do whatever I want.
Do whatever I want. Exactly whatever I want. And, I don't know why I was like that. I just had this, it wasn't even a chip on my shoulder, and it wasn't a I'm better than you kind of thing. It was just, no, I don't need that information.
Right.
I got it figured out. I already know what I'm going to be,
right.
kind of deal.
And I mean, I assume that means what you're doing now is what you were going to be?
Yeah.
Was that what was in your head?
Yeah. So my family's business, I just always knew I was going to work there. Like even as a young kid, because of going down there for summertime kind of deal. That was my summer job every year. It started with like mowing lawns and different kind of things, but I was always mowing the properties of wherever my family owned and all that kind of stuff. I definitely didn't grow up with a golden spoon kind of lifestyle. We definitely lived in a lot of 1-bedroom apartments or 1-bedroom houses that had 4 kids and 2 adults in it. So, I mean, we definitely didn't go without though. There was always food on the plate. We always had clothes on our backs. We always had, shoes for school, whatever sports we wanted to do, so I don't know. We definitely lived a good life, and looking back on it now, I realized how good we actually had it, but I didn't know any different. I didn't know like that people struggled or that people didn't have what we had. I thought everybody lived exactly like I did. I thought everybody went to church on Sundays. I thought everybody had the same kind of, go to work, you get your Saturday for your fun day, and you go to church on Sunday kind of deal. That's just how my family was. And it was my whole entire family. And then everybody that we hung out with did the same stuff too. So it just kind of was, the older I got, the more I started running into people and meeting other people that had different lifestyles, different ways of living, different, upbringings. And it's not that I traded mine in, but I definitely wanted to explore the other options of life,
Right.
Kind of started at a young age. I think I was 14, 15 when I really started getting in trouble, really started running around telling people what I thought of them and what I wanted to do. And, I'm not going to listen to you. That whole attitude thing kind of really came around. And, yeah.
So if you're willing and able, like, tell us some of the stories. You've told me privately some of the stories, but tell some of the stories, how you started really kind of escalating yourself.
Man, I guess the biggest things were, I started, smoking pot and stuff and skipping class. And those are just the generic little things. But I mean, I was a full blown cokehead by the time I was a sophomore in high school. I don't know why it was like that or how. For some reason, going to parties and stuff as a little kid, for whatever reason, I kept the party going because I just thought everybody else was too. And I had no clue that people were actually going home and doing their homework and going home. And, I don't know how I got like that. I think I just found a new part of life that I never experienced before. And then I had nobody telling me what to do because by then, I had already lived that first part of my life where, you just knew you weren't going to tell me any different. And if you did, I went out and made sure to show you that I could do it. And it was more of a test of just, I always thought I was being told no because it was like I didn't know how to do it, instead of like, no, this could actually really impact your life in a negative way. And I don't know, just that whole invincible you know?
Invincible until proven otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I dropped out of school. It was just after junior year. I think I lasted a couple of months, dropped out. I had every intentions of getting my GED and all that kind of stuff, but then I just really started doing my own thing. You know, my parents had divorced at that, you know, I was 14 or 15 whenever that happened, and just started running riot, you know?
Right.
I had no direction or no focus. It was just me.
Right. So when you dropped out, like, did your parents like just send you to work, or did they, kind of how'd that go?
Kind of back and forth. I mean, I know with my mom, that's who I lived with. And, I don't know. I'd had little jobs here and there. I worked at the glass shop. I guess I kind of always used the glass shop as a fallback plan, and that was where I could get a full-time job because they still wanted me to work, and it was easy. I'd done it my whole life already, kind of thing, you know. But I started the apprenticeship program, and that's a 4-year deal. It's a union shop, so we had a lot of advantages to school and just work, and you know, started doing that, but. You know, at 17, 18, and you're working with a bunch of adults that go to the bar on the weekend, and, you know, I don't know. And then all the kids that I was running around with, the people that were my own age, and that's what they were doing every weekend. But, you know, I was doing it every night kind of thing, and it just didn't work out, you know.
Right.
That kind of stuff doesn't mix well. My dad always tried to teach me or tell me, he was like, look, if you want to be a partier, go ahead and be a partier. I don't care. But the biggest partiers that I know go to work every day, and they're the most hardworking people I've ever met in my life. So I really tried to do that too, you know, because I mean, obviously you got to have money to spend if you're going to live like that. And it just never worked out.
Right.
You know, get hungover at work and then start drinking at work and start getting high at work and start, you know, I definitely took advantage of my family in that way. You know, or at least of the company and the opportunities that they were trying to give me there. And I don't know if everybody just kind of shied away from it or ignored it, right? Like, it's just a phase kind of deal. But then, you know, here, was 33 when I got in trouble that last time. And that's when I really started looking around and realized I had nothing, you know, never been married, no kids. You know, I had no reason to not get sober. Right.
Right. Right. So, you know, I don't want to pick on you. The reason I'm going to ask these next questions is kind of, for one, to get people to understand the people you see out there. Mm-hmm. And for two, reminding people just how far you can come back from stuff like that. And maybe the right person hears it, or the right, you know, family member of a person hears it.
Yeah.
Why don't you describe to me, how bad did it get?
Oh man.
And I know that's difficult. If you want to skip over, we can skip that. But
do you mind if we do a bathroom break real quick?
We can do that.
All right.
All right. So here at the Joe & Co podcast, we definitely encourage everyone to get out of their comfort zone. But at my other business, J Fry Enterprises, we do air conditioning. So we absolutely want you to stay comfortable through the summer heat and the winter cold. Give us a call at 316-727-4651. Coming back to, you know, talk about just how bad did it get, man?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting to even think about, just because like early on, with trying marijuana for the first time or trying alcohol for the first time. I guess, I don't know if I should just say that too with, I guess the first time I ever had a beer was the first time I ever had a can of dip, and was the first time I ever saw a pair of tits kind of deal.
Right.
It was like at all three kind of deal.
America, fuck yeah.
It sounds weird, but I mean, that's kind of what happened. I was with a friend, and his older cousin came back to the house, and he was like a college person, right? And in college was able to drink, had beer and tobacco. and we were playing video games or something. And he came in and started hanging out with us, offered a beer to us, and then offered us a dip, and then put on this movie called Barbed Wire. So it was Pamela Anderson's tits, right? So, oh yeah, it was all in one go. And that was something new to me. I never, was around alcohol ever. Like my parents didn't hang out with people that drank. My family, nobody in my family drank, or at least that I know of, right? Nobody around, I've never saw a beer in my dad's hand or my mom's or anybody they hung out with, right? So to see I didn't know what it was, kind of thing. And I definitely didn't get drunk off that beer. My buddy threw up because of the can of dip, the dip and all that kind of stuff. And I was just laughing at him the whole time. That was funny. And, it wasn't really an experience, right? Like we shared a beer. It wasn't like I had my own beer kind of thing. I want to say I was 12 years old when that happened. And then the first time I ever smoked weed was, 14 or 15. It was summer school. I was in summer school. Me and my buddy would go back to his house, and he had an older brother that, smoked weed and was a pothead and all this kind of stuff, and got us high. And then I started going over there every single day, That kid became my best friend because of the experience that I had over there, right? And that just became an everyday deal for me at that age. So by the time school came around and all that kind of stuff, that was all we ever did was smoke weed, go to school, smoke weed. That was it, right? And then alcohol kind of came in a little bit here and there just because, why not, right? I mean, I just started hanging out with that kind of crowd, and I wasn't looking to fit in. I never had a hard time making friends or finding friends or any of that kind of stuff. But at that time, I had just moved to that new school, and that was seventh grade. And I played sports. I did all that stuff. I didn't have. It wasn't a popularity thing. I don't feel like it was. Even looking back on it now, but it just kind of. With everything that was going on in my personal life and my family and all that kind of stuff, it just changed to where that was all I wanted to do, right? That became an obsession right away. And looking back on it now is like, man, no wonder it went the places that it went, right? It progressed into pills, cocaine, ecstasy, all that stuff. And then I kept getting in trouble. Went to jail at 18, was on probation, started drinking all the time. And then I just became a drunk that whole period because you couldn't, I'd get UA'd, but I want to get breathalyzed. So I just started drinking all the time because I needed something. There was just something about not being me anymore that made me comfortable with myself. Right. So the alcohol really came in at that point, and then it just progressed. Because it was an everyday, all day thing. Even at that age, trying to think whenever the harder stuff came in, that was later on, I was just pretty much a pothead and alcohol, but I was always that guy that you hated that I showed up to your house. You didn't, I was the last person you ever wanted there. And if I showed up, then it was a bad deal or at least, I don't know. And it was like I was running around being an asshole to people. It was just, I was that guy that was completely wasted, completely high, completely whatever. I don't know. I mean, and then the depths of my addiction definitely took me down to, I was a very heavily sedated heroin addict for a few years. Finally got, I say rescued. I started going to this deal called Celebrate Recovery. My uncle and family and whatever, they started doing this program, and they were doing it at their church. And just because of, I'd been to treatment 3 times by that time, and in and out of jail more times than I can count. And this was early 20s. And, shoot, I think it was my dad and this female friend of mine had got a hold of my dad. She had already set up everything for treatment, and they came in, picked me up off the ground and took me to treatment. And, my room was scattered with syringes and alcohol bottles. And that was the only thing in the room, a freaking mattress, TV in the corner of the room, and all this just
Filth.
Yeah. It was bad. And what's crazy about those days is like, I never thought I was doing anything to hurt anybody else. I didn't, that wasn't my goal. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. And I really didn't realize how much I was hurting everybody around me, kind of thing. It just, I didn't know how much control that stuff really took over my life.
Right.
You don't know. You don't meet those people, right? You don't meet those people when you start doing that kind of stuff. You don't know those people until the end. You don't ever see that picture until it's you're the picture now, right? Yeah. So I went to treatment, inpatient treatment, got sober, stayed sober for a little while, and then screwed up again. And, still did a lot of moving around, and, I went back to treatment, and that's when, I became a really big meth user. I, kicked the heroin, and that was like the worst experience of my life. That was the most pain I'd ever been in, the most body aches, whatever. Just that whole withdrawal period from that drug was just intense. And I never wanted to feel anything like that. And then I knew a lot of people that had died or overdosed or, from that drug. And I was definitely, too scared to die kind of thing. Like, I'd rather be high than dead. So I better get this under control. I wanted to stay alive, just keep getting high. I didn't want to be that crazy with it. So, I don't know, going to treatment and getting off of heroin was a huge change in my life, but it really kind of justified everything that happened afterwards. So at least I'm not on heroin. At least I'm not a heroin addict anymore. And I'm over here shooting meth, like that's not really any better. That just changed, they talk about it and just different things that I've read and, changing your addictions. And it's all that still is that same sickness of that empty feeling. I didn't realize I was chasing that empty feeling or trying to fill an empty feeling. I thought I was just getting high. I was getting high by myself. I was, doing my own thing.
Right. And it seemed normal to you.
Yeah.
Because nobody grows up and thinks, I want to be out there, the guy with the sign on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Screwed up. Nobody thinks that.
Well, and that's what was crazy about the whole thing too, is like, I don't know if I got off more on the fact that I thought I was hiding it from everybody, because I'd still go hang out with people from high school. I'd still go out and hang out with, whoever, right? And I still tried to be, normal, but I'm running to the bathroom every 30 minutes to, smoke a bowl in the bathroom and try to not get caught. It was just, yeah, it became such a mess and such a, problem that that's just, I couldn't hold down a job. I couldn't find work. It just, yeah, it's definitely not a way to live.
Right. So, let's skip ahead to kind of the answer period. You told me about the when you got picked up the last time. Mm-hmm. And you told me you were talking to the cops a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to kind of spell that story out, just kind of wrap up the use?
Yeah. And I don't think I can't, how far deep do I talk about? Well, I don't know.
As open as you want to be.
I got in trouble and they put me in this program, and I ended up leaving that program, and was on the run. And, at that point it just got insanely worse as far as my addiction, because I knew if I was going to get caught, I was going to be completely high out of my mind, and you know, you were going to have to catch me. I wasn't going to turn myself in. Yeah, they're just. I was going to do everything possible to not stop, but that last decision that I made, you know, I went into the store and got caught messing around inside this store, and you know, the cops were called, and I don't know. I had warrants and all that kind of stuff, and the guy just felt so sorry for me. You know, I weighed 143 pounds. It's like a walking skeleton, man. I don't think I had eaten for 3 weeks, probably. You know, all my money went straight to meth and shooting meth, and it was just a walking skeleton. And he felt bad for me. And that kind of was like, wow, I really look that bad. I really look like those ads you see on, you know, TV or whatever, the addiction kind of ads and stuff like that. Completely face was sunken in, you know, no eye sockets kind of stuff. Yeah, it's funny. I wish I could flash my mugshot up on here so that you guys could see what it looked like. It was, I think I got a photo of it somewhere, because they would put it on TV and all that kind of crap. That's how serious my charges were. But yeah, he let me call home. He let me call my dad just to let him know what was going on. And that was kind of cool, you know. But it was a weird feeling, because it was like as soon as that all happened, it was just like this huge weight was lifted. I don't have to run anymore. I don't have to hide anymore. I don't have to do any of this anymore. You know, before I'd ever even gotten in trouble, there was times and nights where I would just sit there and I would just like, why can't I stop? Why can't this end? Why do I keep doing this stuff? You know, I'd get to those desperate points of my sanity of just like, dude, I hate this. I can't stand any of this stuff. Like, why do I keep doing this? Why can't I stop? And I knew the exact ways that I needed to stop and how it was going to have to happen, but I just couldn't. Like, you were going to have to force me to stop. I was going to have to be forced to stop, right? And there just wasn't any options, you know. I couldn't get out of that cycle. So getting in trouble and getting locked up was the best thing that ever really happened to me. I don't even really have anything against the system at all. It's like it was exactly what I needed without knowing that that's what I needed. Yeah.
Do you feel like prison like saved your life?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the biggest part of it was being as old as I was, to where I still had that, you're not going to tell me what to do kind of, you know. I didn't go in there searching to belong to a group or searching to belong to whatever, you know, the prisons kind of stuff. I didn't need any of that stuff. At that point, I'd already made the decision to like stop. And I guess the biggest part of that too was the amount of time that they set me in county jail before they sent me to prison. Like, I had a long time to really kind of sit and look at who I wanted to be before I was ever actually in prison. So that by the time I actually got to prison, it was kind of just going through the motions, wake up, work out, eat, go back to sleep, you know.
While you were in that like county and then into prison, were there ever people that you would interact with in that environment that would try to steer you in the right direction, that would try to encourage you to change? Or did you just come to this all on your own?
No, I definitely had people that were placed in my life for a specific reason. And I know that now. Like, I believe that 100%. There was definitely, so they sent me to a high medium facility, maximum security facility, you know, with high, medium and max basically in one prison. Right. And then the next one was like the low and the whatever, you know. But everybody that I was locked up with was in there for murder or life sentences or whatever. And they were looking at me and heard how much time I had. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? It was like, you don't have any family. You don't have any kids. You don't have You could literally walk out of here and become a completely different person. You know, I don't know how many conversations I had that just morning coffee kind of situations of just people telling me their stories or talking to me about what they did to get there. And I don't know why people would open up to me. That's kind of what happened throughout this whole period. People just opened up to me. I wasn't out there searching for answers. I wasn't like, you know, you don't really talk to people about that kind of stuff, right? It's not really it's not shunned upon, but it's not like you know, you talk about the football game and you talk about the shitty food they're feeding us and all that kind of crap. But I don't know, people just started opening up and really mentoring me, which is crazy because you're in there with, you know, just straight killers, right?
I remember you telling me this before, you know, we was talking privately months ago. And I remember thinking like, I wonder if some of these guys saw like a second chance that they always wish they could have got. Like, I wonder if they saw that in you and just had that instinct to just like, man, this kid's he could have the rest of his life ahead of him.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Cause I remember just the way you described it. It's almost like some of these guys like kind of just like looked out for your best interest, you know, just like wanted to see you get out and have a different life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I remember you telling me that. That was like super impactful to me. Cause that's something I don't have any like view of, you know, I don't have any context of.
I don't know how or why it happened, but I definitely like that whole higher power thing is real to me.
Absolutely.
Especially with the places that I was sent and the people that I was around. And that just makes it so real right there with what you were just saying. Because I didn't know any of these people. I would have never met them in my entire life. Right. And maybe that's why they were open to me and, you know, trying to help, because when you're in that kind of situation, you don't wish that on anybody. I don't care if it's your worst enemy. You still don't wish that on them, kind of deal. Like, that's not a place for human beings to be, you know? It's just all bad. It changes their life. Yeah. And I mean, those guys that had been there I met this one guy and I'd have coffee with him every morning, and he had been there longer than I had been alive.
Wow.
And so that was really the main conversations that I was having with him. You know, he's a biker dude, rode motorcycles. You know, we started talking about that kind of stuff. I don't know if he overheard a conversation or something, or I overheard a conversation, you know. But we just started talking, and he told me a story and just was like, man, you really don't need to be here. He was like, I got locked up when I was, you know, I think he said 20 years old, and now he's serving a life sentence, and he was older than, you know, he had done enough time already that he was old, you know, the time was older than I was alive. Right. Man, I really screwed up saying that, but you get what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it made no sense. Like, I had finally gone to prison. Like, I never wanted that to be a part of my story, but like everything I'd ever done up until then was just county jail stuff, you know, 30 days here, 60 days here, 6 months here, you know, but then I was in so many different counties that, you know, you would think that something would stick or somebody would finally, you know, lock me up. But my charges were always like driving on suspended, and I'd get pulled over and I'd have a little baggie in the car with me or something stupid. Right. So nothing would ever really stick until that very last charge. And the judge was really cool. He told me that the next time I ever saw him, he'd make sure I was in prison. And he was a man of his word. So I can't really hate him for that at all.
Right. Doing his job.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of easy for him, but yeah. Too many people like that in my life have been mentoring me or showing me a different way. And I think that at the age that I was, and being so tired in my addiction and how my life was going, and realizing like I had nothing, I had absolutely nothing. They paroled me to the homeless shelter, you know, and it's weird because they paroled me in the same my hometown, but to the homeless shelter. They wouldn't allow me to go to any family or any friends or anybody else. Right. And I'm really glad that they won it, because I probably would have been just sucked right back into the same crap, you know?
Right.
Somebody read the paperwork on me kind of deal, you know? And I was just a runner. That was one of my charges, was aggravated escape for leaving that facility. And I think they just make it that way to really punish people that do that kind of stuff. I mean, actually, I know that that's exactly why, you know, they call it aggravated escape, but.
Right. So, you know, you only get to hear a few stories in your life of people actually coming from, like, literally picking themselves up by their bootstraps with, you know, you had the clothes on your back. You had, you know, sure, you had people that cared about you, but the system was like, no, you figure it out. And, you know, you started to, and I think it was shortly after that, like, I met you. You know, a friend of ours, I don't know how you got there that night, if you'd walked or you think you said somebody dropped you off. They couldn't, you know, a friend of ours had dropped you off and he couldn't stick around.
Yeah.
But you kind of walked up. You actually knew the group of guys I hang out with, you know, the group of guys we all hang out with before I did by like quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, during one of your brief stints of, you know, doing okay before, and you walked up, and I know it had to be a bit of a trip because that night there was nothing but newer guys there. Yeah. Like not a single old head was there that you knew. That had to be a bit of a trip. And I had met you one time, years before. I think you remember the event. You don't remember meeting me, I don't think, but you know, I had met you like one time and knew who you were because your dad was a friend of ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so that was like super cool. You just kind of come walking up out of the clear blue sky. I'm like, where'd this guy come from?
Yeah. No, I think that was what was cool about the whole thing, is just knowing that meeting was still there, and same spot kind of deal. You're right though. Yeah. There was nobody there from before, and we're talking what, a 10, 15 year difference. 'Cause it was like my early 20s. And then now early 30s. So yeah, 10-year difference, which a lot can change in 10 years. I know I definitely changed in 10 years. So, but it was good knowing it was still there. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I paroled to the homeless shelter. And I just walked out of there knowing like I had to make a change. It had to be all me. Like, I'm the one that did this. I have to get myself out of this, and I'm the only one that's going to keep me going. You know, that really, it didn't put any pressure on me. It was more of a challenge. I was like, nah, I need to prove this to myself, you know? So I was leaving that facility every morning as soon as they'd let us leave, because they kind of lock you in there. If it's past a certain time, you can't get in. So you have to be in there before they lock the doors. And then you're just locked in there for, you know, 12 hours or whatever it was. I think it was like 6 o'clock at night, and then they let you out at 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So as soon as 6 o'clock in the morning hit, yeah, I was walking everywhere. I was walking to meetings, meetings, and then trying to find a job, you know, with being at that facility, I was thrown right back in the mix 100%. Like, I mean, I had every opportunity to still be that addict in prison or in jail. I mean, I made the decision because I just didn't want to be that person anymore. I couldn't stand looking at the mirror. So, you know, coming out and still pushing for something new, something different, something that I had never experienced was my goal. And I was done. I was absolutely done. So yeah, being invited to that meeting and then seeing you guys there, and it brought back a lot of feelings and emotions, because the first go around I had absolutely zero desire. You know, I thought it was cool, right? I was like, oh, this is, you know, cool, but this ain't me. I'm not, you know, I was sitting in a room full of men, and I'm, you know, 20 years old. I could have caught on to what they were teaching me, but I just didn't. It fell on deaf ears. You know, I did not understand punishment yet. Right? Like, I still didn't, that connection did not sink in. And I really did not understand the effects that I was doing in my life. and how big it was changing everything for me. Cause it was all me at that point. You know, I didn't care about your feelings. I didn't care about my own feelings. Why would I care about anything else around me? You know? So, I don't know. There was definitely things that I started picking up on from the first go around where it was like, gosh, I wish I could have picked it up then. I wish I could have, you know, but then at the same time, would I have stayed sober? If I would have just went through the motions back then, would I still be sober today? I really don't think that it would have been as easy this time. You know, this time it's been really easy to stay sober because I don't want no part of it anymore.
Right.
Just over and done.
Yeah. And I mean, it was cool because you were walking this stuff and it was like, you know, I don't remember. I think it was nice out the first time you came around. I think it was towards like the end of the nice weather.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, this guy's walking all the time. So I got your number and would pick you up on my way to stuff. And, you know, just so we got to know each other pretty well because I'm like super long winded. I mean, I have a job talking on a podcast, you know, so, and you'd put up with it. So you'd sit there and talk to me for hours and hours. And, you know, it was super cool. And, you know, watching you come out and like not kind of get your shit together. You like came out on fire and, you know, you had a job and then you're doing this and then you had, you know, you're going back to school and learning, you know, a totally different trade and you're doing all these things. And, you know, I kind of told you I was going to talk about it a little bit, you know, getting to watch some of the healing that happened with you, was what inspired me to start doing a podcast. You know, and you know the story I'm telling, you know, so, I knew your dad because he hung out with all of this same group of guys we hang out with now. And, you know, we're outside of your dad's house and you're about to graduate high school.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're 34 years old. And I can tell your dad's like just wanting to know, is it, you know, did he make it? Did he not? You're answering like, well, I turned in this paper and this and that, and you're being accountable to it. And I could tell you all your dad wanted to know was like the outcome. He was like, and I told him, I said, man, you're going to watch your boy cross that stage and get to watch the healing happen. Like at that moment, the emotion, like I didn't belong there anymore. From that second on, I like tried to go like away, you know, 20, 30 feet away and let you guys have your moment. But getting to see that healing happen, you know, see what the effort of, you know, a guy coming out and rebuilding his life and making those amends and making his life what it should have been and what it could be, you know, getting to see that and experience that just as a voyeur, man, that was life altering for me.
Oh yeah.
You know, it reminded me why you know, we give it away to keep it. And it reminded me why I keep going.
That's awesome. No, that's exactly. Yeah.
You know, that was a couple of years ago. Like, it's not like it happened last week. You know, it took me a while to figure out like how meaningful was that and why was it meaningful and what do I do with that information?
Yeah.
But that was absolutely that time that set me down this course of trying to like just share what I've done to grow with people. Cause you know, all I did was give you a ride. Like that's about it, you know, but that was huge for me.
Oh yeah. That was crazy. Well, and then just having all you guys there to watch me walk across the stage and stuff. That was pretty awesome. I didn't know how important that stuff was back then. So to be here now and then just having full support from my family and friends and people I look up to was just, you know, it was huge. It was huge. I didn't realize how much I was pushing through and making sure, you know, that was my promise to myself when I started that school was that I was not going to miss a single day. I felt like if I went every single day, then I would pass because I was actually there and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And who would have thought I actually was able to like put some tests together and pass them. And I don't know. I mean, that's how I knew I'd fail because that's what I did in the past. I'd stop showing up. I'd always give up. I'd quit. I would, you know, always half-ass do something. And I just knew at this point in life, I was like, dude, I got too many things riding on this. And I didn't know how much it was going to impact everybody else around me, you know? And that's what was cool to see too. My dad's reaction, my grandma's reaction, you know, everybody that helped me get there. I know you took me to class a couple of times. I mean, or at least picked me up once. But yeah, the countless meetings we went to, you know, just dinners, you know?
Right.
And that was all just personal growth, personal success, teaching me how to really start loving myself and caring about who I wanted to be. And, you know, there was definitely a lot of doubt there. Can I be this guy? You know, coming from who I always was, or I'd always resort to, man, can I really do this? And, I think the biggest thing that I started with was just making sure I showed up, you know, and then everything just kind of fell into place. And then that really just taught me how every time I ever stopped something was when all that doubt, that shame, that regret or whatever would creep back in. And so I haven't experienced that yet, because everything that I've done so far, since getting sober, I haven't stopped. Right? Like, I don't want to stop because I don't want to turn back into who I used to be, you know? And I know it's just going to take one time, just like one drink, just like one hit, just like one whatever. Well, you can use all that stuff for your attitude, you know? I mean, it applies to everything in your life, you know? So.
Right. Well, I mean, just, you had the right mindset coming out and, you know, but seeing it grow, and I'll give an example, like you were already kind of kicking ass and everything. And, you know, I had a company and I was looking for a little bigger spot, and you, right across from where you worked, there's a shop opening up, and you kind of actually made the connection. I was like, man, there's no way I can afford that place. And it ended up being less expensive than I thought. And I don't know if you remember the conversation, like as I'm moving my stuff in, I made an extra key and gave you a gate key. And you started talking to me about like, man, I don't know that maybe we should do that. Cause Joe, I've screwed this kind of stuff up before. And, you know, I haven't always been that trustworthy person, you know, and we had a valuable moment there. Cause I explained to you, like, your family has given you a lot of chances and stuff, but if you come take all my stuff and I kick your ass, I don't have to explain to grandma why I kicked your ass at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like, I had a freedom to help you in a different way that maybe family doesn't have available, you know, to trust you. And,
yeah,
you know, if you broke the trust, it was a more permanent thing. I wasn't related to you. You know, so.
Well, and that's what was crazy about the whole thing is, like, you guys have always seen something bigger in me than I've ever seen in myself, right? You've always given me that extra level of trust, that extra this, that extra, where it's like, why? Like, well, I don't deserve any of that, you know? But you guys have always seen that for some reason. I guess it's like you were saying, the willingness and the ability to art. You're seeing how much I wanted something different, right?
We're gonna love you till you love yourself, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, and the freedom of choice, and that choice can have really awesome consequences or really negative consequences. It's, you know, you're free to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's what's wild, man. I went from not having a driver's license for 13 years to now I got 2 different sets of keys in my pocket. I got keys to 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 houses, and then keys to 2 businesses. Gate keys, access to vehicles, trucks, all kinds of stuff, you know, like I don't, you know, actually 3 businesses. I forgot my dad's too. So I don't know. There's a lot of, it's not even a responsibility. There's no weight to that, but it's huge to me, right? There's no weight to it because nothing's ever going to happen to any of that stuff.
Right.
Like, but it's huge to me because it's like, dude, I'm the guy that you definitely would call the cops on me if you saw me walking down the street, because I was definitely stealing something from you, or definitely gonna, you know, take whatever I could, because that's who I kind of operated as. Like, if you weren't gonna benefit me in any way, then get out of my way because I'm just going to take your shit kind of deal. I don't know. That was definitely me in my addiction. And so in my sobriety, it's like, dude, I just want to help. I just want to help. I like to work. I like being the guy that has my phone ring, you know. I've heard you talk about that, and that's something I definitely crave now too. And just being available, you know, not really necessarily being a yes man, because you can still say yes to stuff that's going to impact your life in a negative way, but just being open to the suggestion of, hey, this is what I'm doing. Why don't you jump along, kind of deal. So, I'm still learning those kind of skills of what's going to make me successful through watching and learning.
Right.
You know, you don't just become the guy overnight. Right. I mean, it's not, you don't just wake up and have all this stuff. It's baby steps, you know.
Well, you don't ever actually become the guy.
Yeah.
If you think you became the guy, you kind of fell off to the side.
Yeah. Back.
Like you need to work on something else,
Right.
but you know. So what are you're trying to grow, and you're trying to grow, all the time. You know, I see you most days, even if it's just waving across the street at work, but we visit most of the time. But what are you personally working on right now? And that can be a physical attribute, mental attribute, or something a goal you have. What are you working on?
I think my biggest thing right now is like my therapy and, the meetings I go to try and keep myself sane. That's on my main list. Right. But, just the stuff that I do in my private life that I'm doing on my own is, going to the gym. I'm in the gym pretty regularly. I still kind of see that 143 pound person in the mirror, kind of deal. I don't know, the reverse body dysmorphia, whatever you want to call it. I don't mean, it's not that crazy, but, I don't know. I want to grow emotionally. Cause with being sober, you start feeling emotions you never thought you had. And that's kind of why you are an addict or whatever. You want to bury any of the stuff that makes you a certain way or whatever kind of thing. And I've realized how, there's stuff that I like feeling, and I want to grow those feelings, all those good feelings, even the bad ones, because the bad ones still make you stronger. Right. And, I don't know, the therapy deal, and then just working out and, just trying to make today better than yesterday. So I don't know. I was trying to think of something bigger. Just being an influence to all the people that I'm around right now. I'm running. I don't want to say running, because we all do it at the same time. We're all here at the same place. I'm in a sober living home, and we have 2 houses, and, it's just a group of men trying to live a better life. And if I can help anybody, I've kind of realized how much helping somebody else really helps me in the end too, and it gives me more of a better understanding of who I used to be 2 years ago when I started, or 3 years ago, I say 2 years ago, cause that was, I was sober the whole time I was locked up, which was for a year. And then now I got 2 years of sobriety. So I just, watching those new people come in, and it's not that I'm mentoring them, but it's an eye opener. Keeps me right there at that moment of, like the struggle in a way, so I don't know.
Right. Put you in a prime position to see people's success too, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's weird how much you can feed off somebody else because of what they're doing in their life, that sounds kind of negative, but at the same time, I mean, that's, if it's helping you, then it's helping you. So,
right. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Just hearing it from your perspective, because I've kind of been, we've been so closely intertwined since you walked up to our meeting. You and I just being, just in proximity all the damn time.
Yeah,
it was kind of a natural fit. But, getting to hear kind of some of it from your perspective has been super cool.
Oh, right on. Thanks, man. Yeah, I've definitely never talked about myself this much before. So,
Man, I don't really have any questions, but there's a couple of things that just like really stuck out to me. I relate to what you were talking about with you just wanted to fucking stop, and you just like, why do I keep doing this? It's like that insanity.
yeah.
And it's hard to explain to people that just haven't been there. You just don't know that if you haven't experienced that. And to hear you say, like, when they finally got you, like that weight was lifted, it was almost like, to me, like you knew in that moment, like, okay, shit's going to change now.
Yeah.
It was like, so whether it was consciously or subconsciously, you made up your mind, you know? And then when you talked about, you were not even mad at the judge, at the system, is like, I needed that. Like, you needed that to happen, man. Like I've came to this point where like, I have a hard time believing in coincidences anymore. And it really felt like you saw that as like, thank you, like almost like, thank you for this. Not why the fuck did you guys lock me up? Why'd you do this to me? You know, is like, no, like, thank you. You guys saved my freaking life. You know, like that was powerful, dude. That's really good stuff, man. 'Cause like I said, people just don't understand what it's like to be caught in the thralls of addiction until you're there. And like you said, by the time you're understanding it, like you're the guy on the poster. You're the guy that's like deep in it, and it's too late at that point. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely hard to get back out of it at that point. So, man, I think it really speaks a lot to the character of you. You know, like that guy that was in the active addiction, like that wasn't the real Rock. You know what I mean? Like, this is the real Rocky, you know, the guy that we all know today, the guy that's out here inspiring people like me and everybody we're around. I mean, it just really speaks to your character, man. I'm glad you shared that with us. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, cool. Brandon, you got any questions?
No, I don't have anything really. Just honestly, just kind of, it's funny to see. Like, I was kind of know what I was expecting, but hearing Rocky talk, it's almost like the amount of, I was expecting a lot more proudness from himself, and he's almost, I don't know what the word would be, but it's
he's like extremely humble. I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like
it's like there's I was expecting to be like, yeah, look, I mean, I did all this, look how far I've come and all this kind of stuff. He's just like, yeah, I'm figuring it out. And I think it's pretty cool like, to hear it that way, because I feel like from outside perspective, it does, like, they get the idea of like, man, look at you, look how good you're doing and all that kind of stuff. But when you're that person, it's a feeling I get of just like, I'm just doing it, dude. Like, I don't think I'm even doing a good job, like, and so it's hard for you to like realize yourself that you're the one doing it. It's only like people see on the outside, but yeah. So it was interesting to see that come through, especially with you and Joe talking.
Thank you.
It's like that hyper awareness of how quickly any of us could end up right back there. You know what I mean? Like, if I prop myself too high up on a pedestal of like, look at me, pat myself on the back too hard. Like, if I'm doing that, I'm already moving the wrong direction, kind of deal.
Right.
So, that's what I take from that attitude that he exhibits of like, just focus on making tomorrow better than yesterday, or today, however you said that, today better than yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, extremely humble and encouraging. And I want to be like that, man. You know what I mean?
Heck yeah.
It's definitely a practice deal, man. It didn't take overnight,
Yep.
So
Good stuff.
I'll get there.
Hell yeah.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Remember to
follow us, subscribe, like, share with your friends. We'll have the links below.
yeah. Thanks, guys.
Joe and Co. out.